mission, I'm on a mission, I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission, I'm on a mission, I'm on a mission. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible.
Yo, welcome everyone to a new video. So I'm joined with FEDEL. Is that the proper way? Because I always like ruin people's names from overseas, but
yeah, no, it's FEDEL. Like you call it, you say it right.
But yeah, so we're having a conversation about where Christian hip hop is at the moment. You know, a lot's been happening. We actually had a conversation with each other probably a month earlier privately about Christian hip hop, so I thought it'd be really interesting, you know, two different, or mostly FEDEL's perspective. I think he, you know, he's been around for a bit, so he's got some interesting thoughts. He's got friends in the industry as well, so yeah, I thought I'd bring him on. So just introduce yourself to the people.
What up, y'all? I go by the name FEDEL, F-E-D-E-L. I actually do this full time. I travel around and using, you know, hip hop as a tool, you know, for God, and also just something I love. Like, you know, I look at it like God gave me an opportunity to do music, you know, and I'm grateful. I love what I do, and I focus on the part of what I do that I love, which is like trap style. I'm big. I'm a vibe artist, man. I make music I vibe to, and I love it, man.
No, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Some of your what are some classics from you? Well, for me, classics, because I haven't been around for that long. But what is it? The Russell Westbrook song. Oh, I used to play that a lot.
I hear that a lot. Yeah, I hear that a lot, and I so skipped over that song. Like the song called "Hang Time." That Russell Westbrook. I got hang. Yeah.
Hey, God hung with me even when I lost hope. Got me feeling like Pop, the realest thing I ever wrote. Yeah. Russell Westbrook. I got hang time. Jumpin'. I got hang time.
Yeah. So Christian hip hop at the moment. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So just as, I guess, just the overall state of it, you know, some people say it's dead, some people, I mean, even today, you know, like Dayton and Ruslan talking about it being like the most alive it's ever been. So what are your thoughts as far as where it is?
I understand when people say it's dead, because it's not what it was. There was a golden era. I think the 116 era was like this golden era, and I think a lot of people are comparing now to then. And when you compare now to then, I can see how somebody would say it's dead. There's the other side where there's people like, you know, God Over Money Crew. They've always existed in their own sphere, in their own world, similar to me, where, you know, I don't feel it. Like, I don't feel it like other people feel it, because Lecrae was he had, it was as if he was like the motor for so many artists. Like, he put the battery in so many artists that when he made changes, it adjusted a lot of artists. That if you go online and be like 4 years ago and be like, who's your top 5, they all would have been connected or indirectly connected to Lecrae.
Yeah.
And so it's not like that now. And I think, you know, the social climate in America had a lot to do with that, and NF had a lot to do with that. Yeah. And so it's a unique space. Like I say, like I've always moved like on the outside rim. So like I've always kind of came in and been a part of something, like when I featured on the artists here and there and stuff like that. But I've always kind of been on the outside. But I've always been a big part of like helping artists, like with ideas, with you know, maybe marketing ideas, or motivating, picking beats, writing stuff. And I've always done that a lot for artists. But at the same time, I've always moved at my own speed. So going back to your question, when you say when people saying CHH is dead, I understand. There's two sides. There's like, I can see that, and also, like, we're in a space where a lot of this started from a group called Cross Movement years ago, and they were they were extreme in a lot of their views.
Yeah.
But from them came Lecrae, right? And a lot of and because they signed Lecrae, the Cross Movement was from the East. Lecrae was from the South. He was killing it down here, and so they partnered up, and then Lecrae kind of launched out his own thing. And Lecrae was extreme as they were. Like, he had, you know, some of you all, like, this might be new information for a lot of the newer fans, but it was like Lecrae had views that were more anti what he's doing now. If you look,
flipped in a way.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to Lecrae's music back in the day, it is like what he's doing now is total opposite. And I'm not saying it's wrong, because I relate more with what Lecrae now than Lecrae then. Lecrae, Cross Movement, I didn't vibe with that whole. I felt like it was too extreme. And so, like, what he's doing now, it was tough for a lot of fans from the early 116, a lot of supporters, a lot of even ministers. His transition has been tough for a lot of the, I would say, foundational fans of Christian hip hop. And that it's really, you know, I think it really hit CHH in the gut. You know, I do.
Yeah, I guess for a lot of people, you know, he would have been, what's the best way to say it? I mean, when I like started listening to him, like even Anomaly, like it was still kind of spiritually feeding you in a way, but now he's kind of like talking to a different audience, so it's kind of like you almost lose that spiritual like fuel in your life in a way. So
yeah, and I think a lot of fans like Lecrae more for what he stood for than his music. You know, I think like people cared more about what he stood for and how he communicated what he stood for more than his music. And I think that shows now, because I think that even though he still has a lot of fans, a lot of supporters, you can feel there's a different like presence around what he's doing, even though his music is dope. It's crazy, you know. But they, like, when I move around now, I remember, like, when I move around, I used to get asked about Reach. I used to get asked all the time. I don't even get asked anymore.
Oh wow! Like,
I don't even, like, when I travel, I used to hear all the time. Now I don't even get asked, because I'm in a lot of churches.
Yeah. And
it's not this. It's the presence. There's like a unspoken tension between Christian rap and the church right now.
Yeah. And
a lot of that is the social climate. Like the social climate, like with race. Like there were a lot of white pastors that was heavily involved in Christian hip hop because of Reach. And when I used Trayvon Martin, who was he was a young black man who was gunned down by the police in Florida. That was kind of like the start of this tide in America, where if you were black and male, you were. I would say almost all black people felt that pain. You didn't feel like some of your spiritual fathers reciprocated that concern.
Yeah. And
I believe that began like a tidal wave of like tension. Reality is a lot of the OG artists are really disappointed. They're hurt, and they're hurt by the church. Like, and there's a lot of tension in relationships that were strong. There's a lot of tension now, and there's a lot of things going on. There are people. I got a phone call last week from a reliable person telling me about somebody who I know who is strong in the faith, who has just walked away. You know, and it's just, and so you wouldn't have saw that coming. And he's around people that's like, you would have, like, in years past, they were the go-to guys. But it's just something going on in Christian rap, and fans are feeling it. So if you're a fan out there, if you're new, you don't feel it. If you came in on Social Club and you were only fans of Social Club, you might not feel it as much, because Social Club has been consistent. They've kind of done them, you know what I mean? And you know, if you came in off NF has kind of been consistently who he is.
Yeah.
But I think there's like a whole other side of artists which has kind of been different, and also there's new artists that people love that they don't feel like is getting enough ground. Like they're not like getting enough exposure. And so you'll have an artist, you be like, oh, they're dope. That group is dope. He's dope. Oh, I like his music. And it was like, there was a time when there was platforms for them to kind of get more exposure. And it's not like that now. So now you'll see a guy sign a record deal, or you'll see a guy sign with, you know, stand next to this artist, and it doesn't do what it used to do. But the music now has a vibe that's different, and I don't think CHH caught the vibe. Like we missed the vibe. I remember hearing Cross Movement back in the day do South music, and it didn't sound right. And Lecrae came in. Lecrae had the vibe, and people was like, oh, that's it. And it was like, that's what I feel happened with CHH. A lot of it didn't catch.
Yeah, I guess among these younger artists, you can kind of feel it sounds a lot more natural for them than, you know, some of these artists who have been around for a while, kind of, you know, hopping on the sound a bit. But, So I guess this has been a conversation ever since I've been into it, but do you see a decline as far as content is concerned, or do you feel like that's more of a sound change where, you know, like the trap style, you're not as lyrical? Or... No,
the content has straight went on. Like the content about biblical things has just like went to the toilet. And one of the reasons it's done that, like, I understand. I'm not the guy. I'm not the artist who feels like guys need to always say Jesus, always say. I don't even like music like that.
Yeah.
But there comes a time when you like, bruh, I feel like y'all are trying not to put it in your music. Like, it's not even. It's like you're going out your way, and that's what my feeling is when I hear records now. It's like it's like intentional. It's not like, oh, you wrote, you know what I mean, some songs that had content that was, you know, a little more positive or whatever. It feels like it's intentional, you know. And honestly, I feel like that's because in Christian rap, when people are looking for how they're gonna get ahead, they're looking at who they look up to. And so whoever they look up to, they're gonna model their stuff after that. And like whoever that is, that's what they're gonna do. And so Christian rap right now, the wave is that. I actually thought when Zante had that God Taught Me, I thought that was gonna be like a thing. Like I thought like that might be like a song that kind of, because that song was dope feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Explicit about God rather than
it was. And so I'm gonna be honest with you, like I am on, like I said this, and it's funny we're having this conversation the last month, because I am about to make a slight transition, because I am feeling it on my heart to play a role in some of this, because I've never looked at I've never taken my cues from Christian rap. I'm like a balanced artist. Like I like making explicit songs and songs that might have more just proverb type content, right? It's just how I naturally think. When the content pendulum has swung so far that I'm actually noticing it, because I used to not pay attention, but it's swung so far that it's even coming to my attention where it's like, bro, like it's like I understand the fact as an artist, every time you go in the studio, something about God is not in the song. Like, bro, like, I just don't. I believe most artists, if you're like me, it's not how that works. Every song that I write doesn't. I might make a love song about my wife, or I might make a song about loving my kids, or I might make a dance. I got a song called Drop Dance I wrote last year because I'm like more of a songwriter. It's not Christian content in it. It's just a song called Drop Dance that I was inspired by my daughter. But it's very clear that there has been like way more of a, it's not cool to do it, and that bothers me. It's one thing for it to be like, well, I'm writing songs for movies or I'm doing this, but it's becoming, or it might already be here, it's not cool to do. And bruh, I've never felt that before. And it feels like now artists, they're not blatantly saying it, but it's like, man, it's not cool to talk about Jesus, or it's not cool to talk about biblical things, or dudes can't creatively come up with ways to talk about it. It's become that, and I don't know if there's been a time since I've been doing that where I felt. There's never been a time where I felt that, and like this week, the last 5 days, I felt it. And I don't even visit a lot of Christian rap sites on a regular. Like, I don't, but I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt like this, where it's like, it's not cool. It's not cool to, and it's like, that's when I feel like it's too far. I used to tell guys, like, because I used to be criticized on my first album. I didn't talk about Jesus enough. And I had a song called Tell a Friend, where the hook was, Jesus coming soon, tell a friend. Wow. Jesus coming soon, tell a friend. It went #1 in my city on secular radio. Wow. And I was criticized by the Christian community. I'm talking about like demonized. Yeah. Because they felt like in all my records I was not talking about Jesus enough. Which, if you listen to the first album I Live, it freaking looked like I'm a Bible teacher if you listen to it now, content wise. But back then, I mean, I was demonized, criticized.
Yeah, man, I definitely feel that. I think, I feel like I'm guilty in a way, just because that, I guess the style of music I'm into, there's not really any like people who are like super preachy, I guess, who make that kind of style. So it's kind of hard, I guess, for, a fan that might be around my age who's into that kind of style. But I guess it is worrying in a way, because, as like a professing believer, like, at least for me, like, I've always got, like, I guess in the back of my mind what God thinks about this always in my mind. So, like, I feel like if I don't make music, but if I made music, that would just come out naturally. So, like, when there's these artists who, don't mention God at all in an entire album, but they're kind of in this Christian hip-hop space, it kind of makes you think, like...
Well, this is the thing. It's always been a problem. And this is my very strong opinion about Christian rap. We are too extreme. There has to always be a balance in the economy of Christian rap, of content.
Yeah.
We need both sides, but we are so self-righteous in our artistic thought in everything that we will beat somebody up who is not doing what we think is right at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't know how to sit in a room with dudes who do other things. Because them guys are looking across the room like, man, he ain't really doing it like this. Like, it's so extreme in Christian rap that now the pendulum has swung so far to now you're like, bro, like, if it was just balanced, it wouldn't feel like that. But we don't think it should be balanced because we feel like it should be the way we think it should be. And that's what I feel like has hurt Christian rap. If it was back when there was 116 Unashamed Cross Movement, if they knew how to coexist with Cross Movement was popping, if they knew how to coexist with Toner Rats at the time, and then when 116 first came out, and there was like propaganda. They weren't really doing their thing together, but there was like propaganda. There was some other guys who were more on the other side of the fence. If they knew how to coexist, just like you do that, we do that, let's do stuff together and tell people they need both. If that was happening back then, instead of like, oh, he's right, I think he's doing it right because he's getting into this and getting this, and then we swing over there. If like that is killing, and it will always kill Christian rap. We'll always go in these extreme phases.
It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. Oh, God said I can. Yeah. Attitude like I run this.